welcome back. Let's talk about Lagos State's Independent Electoral Commission and the elections that are coming up on the 12th of July, which will be taking place in 20 local government areas and 37 LCDAs in Lagos. So altogether, you can put the number 57 of them. But there are issues that have been raised by the persons concerned as far as that election is concerned, and some of the gentlemen are right here with me. Before we get to what you're seeing on your screen, let me introduce my guest on the program. Ms. Ayodele Adio is the chairmanship candidate for Etiosa local government area. He is of the Youth Party. Thank you so much, Adio, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
I also have Mr. Michael Olasoji, is the DG, State Campaign Council of African Action Congress, AAC, Lagos State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's get back to that. So what you saw in just a moment, as far as the laws concerning local government conduct is concerned. So let's get to the first one, which is our ground norm. If you can see part 2, paragraph 1112 of the second schedule, it talks about the powers of the National Assembly to make laws concerning local government and every other election, yeah, which will give birth to the Electoral Act 2022. But you can see the second part, section, that's the 12th part of it, the 12th paragraph in the schedule, noting that in paragraph, that therefore shall preclude a House of Assembly from making laws with respect to election to a local government in addition to. But the underlying one on the ones in red, but not inconsistent with any law made by the National Assembly. So that 12th paragraph empowers the states to make laws concerning local government elections, but it has to be consistent with the Electoral Act. So let's get to the next one, which has to do with what the Electoral Act actually says. So if you're conducting a local government election in any part of Nigeria, these are the guidelines according to Electoral Act. You will send a notice not later than 360 days and publish that notice. There are specificities in terms of the state, the date of the election. So I just want to run through. So this is about the notice of election, 360 days, and you publish it exact day that election will take place. So if we get to the next slide, if we get to the next one, if my guys can be running with me. Oh dear. Okay, section 9. This is where it gets tricky as to the register, voter registration. If you see the section 9 subsection 6 says the registration of voters, updating and provision or revision of the register of voters under this section shall stop not later than 90 days before any election covered by this act. If we go to the next one, which is the final one before I bring in my guest and ask the question. So see what the Electoral Act says about procedure for conduct of council polls, whether it's in the FCT or every other local government. It says you must obey the very constitution we read in that paragraph 11 of part 2 of the second schedule, because it must have same and equal force. The next one, which is where we're going to finally on this. Any election to a local government area that is conducted by a state commission in violation of subsection 1 shall be invalid. That's referring to the constitution. And any official that carries out that election commits an offense and shall be subject to prosecution. So if we go to what LASEC published, if we go to the LASEC slide and see what they published as to notice of election and all of that, which is what is causing the controversy, and that's why I brought in this gentleman, Ms. Ayodele Adio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
So I needed to do this as a reference to how local government elections, what the laws guiding the local government, conduct of local government elections are concerned, both in our constitution and in the Electoral Act. Notice, registration, compliance, the limit of the House of Assembly not to overreach itself, and all of that. So what exactly is the problem with what you guys are complaining about?
But it just looks like you have done the work and we should just pack our bags and go home.
No, I'm just reading the law.
You have done the work. Listen, let me take you through the chronology of the events so that you get a sense of the legality of what the current local government election is in Lagos State. A notice of election was put out on April 12th, right, for the elections to be conducted, on July 12th. So that gives you 3 months, which is essentially 90 days. If you calculate it, it gives you 92 days. By that singular action, you are in violation of Section 150, which clearly stipulates that the procedure for elections for local government must be inconsistent with that of area councils, like you rightfully read. And specifically in 103 of that section, it says that elections will not be conducted earlier, not earlier than 150 days to the date of expiration of the tenure of the current occupants of the office, right? And the reason behind that is such that you give a 60 days notice, because like you also read, voter registration is supposed to end 90 days before an election. So you have at least 60 days before that time to conduct whatever voter registration and get the voters register, to the local government. So clearly they are in violation of that. Not just are they in violation of that, there was a Supreme Court decision in Rivers State, which we all know, the basis upon which the Rivers State local government election was cancelled and a rerun ordered, was basically because the Rivers State Electoral Commission violated this very section of the Constitution, and the APC in Rivers State took them up to the Supreme Court and won. And in the pronouncement of that Supreme Court, the Supreme Court also made the continuous voters registration also mandatory in local government elections. And to that extent, that 150 days as prescribed by the Constitution also becomes mandatory for local government election. So explain to me how a commission headed by a retired judge will flagrantly disregard the basic tenet of the Constitution in terms of notice of election, especially again when there was a recent Supreme Court decision that completely annulled an election based on the violation of that particular section. To even make it worse, not only was a notice issued on April 12th, the guidelines of the election did not come until 3 weeks after a notice of election. So you gave a notice for an election, you waited 3 weeks later before you issued the guidelines of an election that was there. But even the worst part of it all is that the law upon which this election is supposed to be governed has been a matter of secrecy, because we were told on the day we had a parley with LISEC, we were told that the amended law, local government law in Lagos, was passed in January. Apparently, that was a barefaced lie, because clearly that law was passed in May. And if you followed events, 2 days ago, the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly summoned the Attorney General of Lagos to ask why the law that was assented to by the governor in May has not been operative, because the Attorney General and the Solicitor General is arguing that that law will not take effect until August. So, my dear panelists, I think is worth asking. What law is currently governing the local government elections that we are currently running? Because clearly, if the State Attorney General is saying that that law does not take effect until August, we are completely amiss as to what law is governing this current election.
2008 or so.
So it's a problem.
Let's come to you. What do you make of this, and why are you so? Let's accept without conceding that there's illegality, because we're going to get LASIEC to come and speak for themselves as well.
Definitely.
We had to bring out the Constitution and the Electoral Act to show Nigerians how elections are to be conducted properly. And from what he said, it clearly shows that there are certain things that need fixing. But why are you participating in an election where you feel that it looks like they're not following the law?
Definitely. This Lagos state belongs to each and every one of us. And we will not leave the state into the hands of those that have been destroying it to date. So it is our responsibility, our constitutional responsibility, to also participate in that local government election. And the political consciousness of our people, of Lagosians, are increasing day by day. So we must not abandon the local government election, the third tier of government, into the hands of those that have been destroying it till date. Prior before the notification of the timetable of the local government election, there was an agreement, there was a meeting between LASIEC and IPAC regarding the direction of this election. There was not a comprehensive agreement between the IPAC and LASIEC before LASIEC pushed out the timetable and notification for local government election. So even most of the political parties within the Lagos state were even surprised seeing timetable flowing around everywhere. Secondly, in an election we are going to, we are 11 or 12 days towards the election. This really shows that LASIEC is not really prepared and ready for this election. If they could still be having deficiencies and ineffective in the administrative process, how will you call political parties for a verification and validation of a document, and on that same day, you are now bringing out guidelines, telling candidates, telling political parties, these are the documents expected from you. You send a notification to each political party 2 days towards validation and verification of credentials. Now candidates and political parties leaders getting to the venue, you are now bringing out guidelines, pasting it on the walls. And you are telling candidates, okay, you have to bring 10 voters card for 10 sponsors, photocopies for voters card. Document which candidate or political parties are not aware. It was not even specified in the letter of invitation sent to each political party. And with this, we are aware and we know their plans as political party. They've hijacked this state before now, and we will not continue to open our eyes and allow them to continue to take over and continue to destroy the state. That is why we have to participate in this election and see the consciousness, the political consciousness of our people, of Lagosians, is increasing day by day. It's high time we take Lagos back from those that are mismanaging the state.
Yeah, I think at this point, Jeffrey's question is important. Why would you want to participate in an election that is already skewed against you?
Well, I think there are two things involved when you say, which is an important question that you asked, because sometimes from experience we have gathered that when you go to court to challenge the legitimacy of certain elections, the court sometimes will ask, what your local standing is, what your grievances are, and if you had not participated in the process, how can you justify whether or not you were excluded or whether the process was fraudulent. And that's why sometimes you will need to participate in that process so that you can also collect evidences, of the malpractices, of, the flagrant disregard of the Constitution and processes of the elections, so that they can be admissible when you eventually go to court to challenge the legitimacy of that election. And it's also important, I think he also raised an important point, which is that if you completely also allow a space wherein you feed into the consciousness of the people that only APC participates in local government elections, what you then do is to completely cede that space, to that political party, and then people will automatically assume that there aren't any other political parties in existence, and so maybe they should just pitch their tent with this, political party. So that's why it's important, not just because we must consistently put a front of a credible alternative. It's also important to be a part of the process so that when you go to challenge legitimacy in court, you have grounds for challenging, those malpractices and those illegality, when you get to court.
And so we've seen that the opposition parties have not been silent about this. In fact, there was a video that went viral 2 days ago where party candidates and their supporters were chanting slogans right there in front of LASIEC office. So what is LASIEC saying about the grievances that you've presented, your disaffection about this process?
Till date, or till now, we've not had a progressive response from them than only being defensive. How will you call 2 or 3 political parties for verification and validation of documents, and you have only 5 staff on seat, and candidates are on seat from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. How many minutes does it take to verify documents and validate documents? But we know their intention. There is an indirect way of disenfranchising other political parties. It's an indirect way of frustrating other political parties, so that most candidates, most political parties will feel frustrated before the election, and they cannot catch them or knock them out of the election. So from last year, they know what they are doing. And we are using this medium to tell them to sit tight, and the whole Lagosians are watching them. And this time around, it's not going to be business as usual.
So what's the way forward now? And again, even the question of the LCDA, again, the LCDA is not recognized in the Nigerian Constitution. It's a Lagos thing. What Nigerian Constitution recognizes is 20. So why are they conducting LCDA election with local government elections? Is there a reason for that? And are you guys participating? But more importantly, in answering that as we close, what's the way forward?
Well, the way forward is that we are going to challenge every of these processes in court. I can say for a fact that, we began a process in court yesterday. We have a hearing on the 17th of July, and we're going to challenge every of this illegality in court. And I can guarantee you that many of these things will not stand at the end of the day, because you cannot, brazenly and flagrantly, consistently disregard several positions or provisions of the Electoral Act, the Constitution, and even common sense in conducting elections into local government offices and expect that those elections, will stand. And it's even worrying, and I'm saying it's even worrying that this commission is headed by a retired judge who typically, once you see that, it's supposed to inspire a lot of confidence that at the very least, this person will follow the rule of law, in the guidance of this election. But it's sad that we're where we are today, that every single process, including even the polling guide, which was just released sometime last week, for an election that is next week Saturday. So how are political parties supposed to even know where the polling units are located? And as I speak to you, if you see some of the definition of those polling units located, very fictitious. You can't even trace those polling units. Some of them are located in palaces. Some of them are located in places where you cannot access. I mean, it's a complete charade. They don't even...
Is it not INEC that provides polling units?
Exactly. So that's even assuming without conceding that they even had the powers to create polling units. You are releasing polling guide 2 weeks or 3 weeks to an eletion. But fundamentally, you don't even have the powers to delineate polling units.
We know
it's the exclusive purview of INEC.
INEC has the powers to not the State Electoral Commission, because you draw powers from INEC for everything you do. That means this is an ongoing conversation. I think, okay, that was you guys.
Yes.
So, but the APC candidates are not complaining about this. So
of course.
Because they are part of the system, and they've
had their own fair share of challenges.
Their own was the
primary position of candidates during the primaries.
Well,
that's an internal matter.
So, anyway, what happens is we're going to be fair to everybody. So this is an open invitation to LASIAC to come and answer these questions about the rule of law and how elections are conducted in Lagos State, from notices to registration to polling units to LCDAs to eligibility requirements. There are so many layers that this may end up like River State, and nobody wants that to happen in the nation's commercial nerve center. So it's important that LASIAC comes. So this is an open invitation to LASIAC. Ayodele Adio is the chairmanship candidate for Etiosa local government area. Your one is not LCDA.
No, it's not.
From the Youth Party. Mr. Michael Olasoji, DG, State Campaign Council of AAC, Lagos State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you.